let's be clear, they don't necessarily add value. You know, if we were all working the same standard, and that's across the board, it doesn't have to be formal standards or environmental assessments, just the way in which we procure as clients, I would suggest. If every client procures differently, that adds cost. I guess they didn't like that comment. What I was going to say was that adds cost because every contractor has to reply to every client in a different way. And so what I do know is that the environmental systems do tend to be trying to collaborate. They recognise this problem, this barrier. It isn't helpful. We don't need competition on the rating system. We need competition on the best ways of using the rating systems to deliver better performance. But your point about relevance, Chris, is well made. Yeah. And you know, systems that are designed or developed in other parts of the world, they're not relevant here. They shouldn't be used here.
Just a comment on what you've just said.
Yeah, please.
It's a positive one in support of your comment. It is. Yeah, it's the for instance LEED in the UAE. Now, Istidama was based on LEED, but with a change. They introduced a change, for instance, in relation to the distance. You know, there's a 500 miles distance in terms of procurement, right? Yeah. Which is something that's not in LEED, and I understand now that LEED is looking into incorporating that into the LEED itself. So it's systems learning from each other, and of course BREEAM came before LEED, and LEED has taken some of it as well. So it's a you know, a cooperation between the various systems.
Yeah.
There was a second question just a little bit further back.
Hi, just wanted to add to something that Rick said regarding the Thermal Directorate's response. I think it has changed since that conversation that you had. Yeah. The Thermal Directorate now has a very interesting program in place where buildings less than 4 stories are self-determined by architectural and engineering offices. So you self-regulate. So as an architectural practice or as an engineering practice, if you've got a building that's less than 4 floors, you certify that it meets the relevant standards. At the end of the year, the Thermal Directorate does a random sample check, and they may pick your project to check, and if it doesn't meet the code or doesn't meet their requirement, then you're in trouble. Because you get certified as a certifier. You could lose that certification.
Yeah, no, exactly. We went through that process, and it was a good process, actually.
Sure. No, it's great.
It's very good. And I understand as well that the actual end of that is the buildings will actually be inspected as well. So not just the design being checked to make sure it's thorough, but they'll be going after guys like David to make sure that what we've done actually gets implemented.
Sure.
Yeah.
Chris, it strikes me the UK could have more self-certification of that nature. I like the sound of that.
I do too, because you know, sometimes you know, if you can sort of reorder the way you regulate and put the regulation into enforcement, and through the enforcement delivering value, rather than actually just having rules that people have to spend a lot of time and money on. So looking to comply with things, you let them put the effort into complying themselves, and the threat of that inspection would, I think, focus people's minds tremendously, as long as the threat was a pretty good one. I mean, you know, a 1 in 200 chance of being inspected, I don't think would be much of a threat, but, you know, a 1 in 10 or a 1 in 20 chance, I think, would make sure people did what they said they were going to do. So I would like that. And that would also fall in, I think, with, you know, what we do want to see more in the UK is lighter regulation, but better regulation.
Yes. Yeah, I think it leads to a more professional, potentially more professional industry.
And I also think, yeah, and I agree with that. And I think it again puts the burden back on professionals to do the job that they, you know, at the end of the day, you're certified as a professional to do. And if the backstop is always going to be a government department checking what professionals are doing, I think, well, why be a professional then? Because the government will do it. And I really do feel this is a good opportunity for professionals to, if you like, earn their money and give that value in being able to do these certifications.
Yeah, I'm interested on what you're saying about that self-certifying part, but the important thing is that it goes full circle. Because again, there's no point in having very professional consultants or designers out there if then you are using grade D contractors to build your buildings with. And so everything needs to be brought back together, you know, because we still have that situation. We have pre-qualification for contractors in Bahrain, and you do actually have a grade D contractor. I mean, nobody would want their building to be built by a grade D contractor, surely. It just doesn't make any sense, and it just doesn't all fit together.
Professor Lyon.
What is my lioness? I'm just thinking about the business case for it in Bahrain and the Gulf region, in fact, learning from experiences in the West in particular. If you look at the change management literature, Qatar, change management model, 8 steps. Step 1, establish the sense of urgency. I don't think people see the sense of urgency in this part of the world for some reason. People feel resources are available, relatively cheap. I can consume electricity, water, as much as I want. There's no motivation. There's no sense of urgency. How do we create this sense of urgency for people to appreciate that unless we move for more sustainable building and infrastructure and adopt sustainability as a way of life, living it every day of the week, I don't think I'm not seeing the business case for it yet. The sense of urgency is not.
Well, Anthony pointed out how cheap the natural resources are, how cheap energy is at the moment.
But there must be something. I mean, somebody said maybe raise the prices of water and electricity and the rest, but there must be some experiences which we can learn from the panel.
Can I bring urgency to construction industry in Bahrain today? The quarry is closed. We have no rock, we have no fill material. Okay? This is urgent. Yeah. This is all construction projects in Bahrain today are stalled because of this. We are not allowed to use alternative materials for filling. These are not part of the Ministry of Work specification, and to try and get recycled construction materials or slag materials used in there, it's too difficult at the moment. And yet, Alba, as a nationalized industry, practically exports slag material to other countries to use as filling materials. But it couldn't be more urgent, and nobody's dealing with it.
Yeah, I was just going to say urgency without urgency can sometimes be forced upon us, and that urgency it could be driven by what's happening with the oil price at the moment. And David kind of touched on it, and I said I wasn't going to mention it when I was up here, but I already have. So subsidies. The subsidies in Bahrain are very, very high. And I sit here as an expat enjoying those subsidies. But should I be? I don't know. So I think there probably should be some assessments done. That would create some urgency as well within the industry to maybe see how we're using our resources and where the money's being spent.
Sorry, yes, would you like to come in on that one?
In fact, I would like to follow up on the point of urgency and the point of having the sustainability as a way of life, not only in rating systems. And do you think that, can I ask a question to the panelists and also to maybe Dr. Ghassan can respond to that? The education system and the higher education, for example, in engineering and universities, is it lagging behind in terms of catching up with the urgency of having this kind of problems that are related to sustainability as mandatory in the education? And can this be cascaded also to schools? In fact, all what we see is a matter of awareness in the media. It's as if it's, I remember the choice that whether it's a dream or it is a necessity. When it becomes a necessity, it comes into the education system itself. When the computer, for example, if we take an example of when the computer the technology has been in progress, it changed the whole system in higher education, then in it cascaded into the rest of education. In fact, in our way of life, I don't see that sustainability is given enough importance or urgency to become mandatory in our lives, especially in universities and schools and in our moral system, to have this kind of feeling to others that.
I think the question of whether sustainability is embedded enough in HE and university education is one
Yes.
I could have heard anywhere in the world. That's always a challenge, Ghassan, to
Yes.
your community, isn't it? I mean, Chris, as a professional institution, where do you think we are on that?
Well, I mean, we see a lot of evidence now at schools in the UK where youngsters have just got this as their way of life. And
Yeah.
mentioned earlier by Don, you know, youngsters putting the lights out, and that is very clear. But the project you see being done, young people are very much on the future of the planet, you know, because it's their future. They're also very much, and it comes back to the earlier question, minded about some of the costs. They know how much it costs for fuel. They know how much it costs for electricity. You know, to be able to take, you know, move away from fossil fuels, you know, there are big price increases coming in for alternative forms of energy, you know, because you're not going to, you know, there's a move away from oil and coal. That actually has an impact on them, so they've got to, you know, they're learning to actually be economical with these things. So the culture change is happening, but it's being driven by, you know, some of those simple necessities. Too damn expensive, and actually what we're doing is bad, and the youngsters have got that on board. And I've got a 25-year-old who, you know, he is very particular about making sure that lights are out. You know, the standby light is gone. He switches things off at the wall socket. You know, he saves me a fortune, thankfully, more than I would probably do. But that's where they're at now. I don't know whether it's happening in other places, but I think it's when you have the focus on things like cost and things like the damage it's doing. You link those two together, you see a strong drive, and I certainly think there's a lot of pressure coming from behind. Don mentioned the Climate Change Act that we've got, and just one final point on this. If we break the law in the UK on delivering on the Climate Change Act, I don't know who's going to go to jail. Normally, if you break the law, someone goes to jail, and I don't know what's going to happen with the Climate Change Act and who's going to go to jail if we don't deliver on those challenges. So you have to wonder whether sometimes these acts and these laws that are passed are really going to make a difference, or are just an attempt to demonstrate that you're trying to make a difference. But on that one particularly, it'd be nice if the Prime Minister went to jail, because I'm sure if the Prime Minister went to jail, something would really get done.
That's the UK.
In the UK.
That's
in
your
the
political
UK.
point, is it? Yeah.
Okay. So, Mr. Cameron, that is.
I'd like to add, I mean, things have started changing from the educational side of things since I've been in architecture and in building design. When I first kind of came into it, it was all about the biggest and most flamboyant, whatever you could come up with. And actually, the students that we're receiving now are kind of going back to the basics. How do you site a building? Well, you don't site it with all your glass on the south side of the building. You know, simple stuff. And looking at how you use natural ventilation to, you know, and passive, you know, passive heating and cooling to buildings. And they're going back to the basics. It's all stuff that we learn, but we kind of forgot about straight away. They're actually using that and developing it, and so I've noticed that a lot anyways with a lot of our new and younger candidates coming into our business. I'm
conscious that we didn't necessarily do justice to your question about where's the urgency at the moment, Ghassan, and I'm reminded of what happened with the oil price crash of the late 80s, and in the UK we had an embryonic North Sea oil industry, and the price crash of 50% meant that it was no longer going to be economic to extract that oil unless you had a 30% cost reduction in the capital and operational expenditure required to get it out of the North Sea. An initiative called CRINE was born, cost reduction in the new era. All the techniques used there, we've taken into UK mainland construction ever since the early 90s. Sir Michael Latham referred to it in his report. And it seems to me that if you get that sort of crisis to your core, to one of your core industries, how can the construction industry respond and continue to make it viable you know, to extract that oil. It's just one example of what happens when the market crashes in that way. And what happened was that the UK, or the North Sea oil industry, Norwegian, American, British, all sorts of companies involved, got together and realised you can't just hammer the price down. You know, if you can't just say to me, I want 20% less on that contract we've already signed, that you can't do that. You know, there isn't that amount of margin in the job. What happened was they all got around the table and said, well, how do we take waste out of this process? Can we make this process 30% more efficient? And everybody in this room knows you can make the construction industry a heck of a lot more efficient than it is at the moment. But you've all got to work together. That's client side has got to stick their hand up and say, yes, we do some stuff that's inefficient. And the supply side's got to be honest and come along and say, yes, we do some stuff that's inefficient as well. Put that together and you've got some big numbers potentially saved. Now, where's the urgency to make that happen? You know, is there enough money in the economy? No. Is there enough money in this part of the world at the moment? No. People have been regaling me with stories all day about projects that are now on hold because there isn't the money. Well, how can the industry respond? Can we come up with a smarter solution, a better way of working that will deliver them a 30% better value, 30% less cost, but potentially with more profit in it for the industry at the same time? People have to understand the difference in cost, price, and profit. What you want is an industry that's more profitable, that's delivering a unit price to the client that's less, and you do that by eliminating waste. That's just there's a bit of a lecture now. Did you want to comment on that?
I want to go back on the education part, and I think that we're very fortunate in Bahrain that we have a very well-educated population when it comes to the construction industry, whether they've been educated overseas or the universities here are running programs from overseas. So I would suspect that the students are well in advance of the construction industry in Bahrain, well in advance. You know, and what we're not doing is bringing those graduates into the construction industry, particularly in contracting. I don't know if that's the same from the consultant side. And we're also not converting that education into legislation and leadership in the government, because there's nothing coming back down. But there's no talk about BIM and sustainability in the construction industry in Bahrain today, but I bet there's people in here that know all about it. So where does that education go?
Would anybody else like to comment? Professor Wahib.
I can. Yeah.
Yes. Professor Wahib first, and then the gentleman here.
I think we as Applied Science University, we took the initiative when we started designing the campus here and the building to be as a sustainable building in terms of all the things I presented today in my presentation, that we took in consideration of all these things from day one. We have to be an example for people as an Applied Science University to start this kind of sustainability from day one.
Yes.
They should know that this building is really a sustainable building when we are going to deliver our programs in engineering, architecture engineering, civil engineering, hopefully next year with London South Bank University. We should really concentrate that this is part of the curriculum, part of the culture that we want to carry on with. We want to get associated with CIOB and Bahrain Society of Engineers and others to work all together to make sure that this is something achievable soon. And this should be part of our mission as a university, to help and educate people and get them to know. The Bahraini government now are really considering things to go in that trend. They are encouraging ministers, all the people to go for sustainability. And this is something that will be one day that people know it's not something that they can do easily, and they will see the benefit out of all this together. And you can see that the building, I can tell you, we feel that how much we are saving energy and building in this building, you know, and water, whatever, all the resources. We did spend a lot of money. We paid, of course, to NAS Contracting to do all this job for us, you know. It costs us more, but we can now see the benefit out of it. Huh? No, Atkins. So we are really now realizing that we are getting benefit out of that. We are really saving a lot of energy, saving water, and doing so many things that people may do a plan in the future to do. So it's something we have to set an example and work all together with the Bahrain Society of Engineers and professional organizations such as CIB to encourage people in the area to go for sustainability.
And this clearly is a great showcase. So what have we got other examples? We've got other exemplars. You know, urgency is the number one on your change thing. You know, where are the early adopters? Have we got the exemplars that we can point to? Because you'll be able to point to the business case for why this has worked for you. What about the other sectors? Michael, did I ignore you earlier? My apologies.
I was sitting quietly, waiting to be woken up, actually. But, no, I really picking up on Chris's point. I know he was making a joke about who's responsible, who's going to take the rap for not achieving the targets. Yeah. But I do think that you have to set targets and you have to measure against those targets. And until you do so, you'll continue as you are. The status quo will prevail. So I think the importance of setting targets, and that's at government level and below government level, is so important. And it's a cross-cultural thing with it comes back to education after that. But you've got to have both. You've got to have targets that you can measure against, and you've got to educate people into a way of living or a way of thinking to meet those targets. So, but I know he was joking when he was talking about not achieving the targets in the UK.
There's something about targets which are big enough, so it's not just work a bit harder. You've got to do something different. But targets which you know actually are not that daft. You know, they're not completely out of reach. They're stretch targets, but they're not completely impossible.
But I wasn't joking when I said if we don't hit the targets, Cameron should go to jail there.
Well, he's back again.
It might be a while away. But, would you like to join the debate?
Yes. Mr. Samir Nas told that in Bahrain, lack of aggregates and fill material. This is actually we had to change the culture. The innovativeness we had to improve. We have all the standards in Bahrain. It says 10 years before what we use, same concrete or whatever we follow. Recently, I did a research on sustainable concrete technology. So I went through most of the batch plants, quarries, and get the concrete. We can improve the concrete by 100 newtons or 80 newtons. And we can get the durable, more ductility, more brittlity, and we can save the cost. Also, the embodied energy we can save. So in that case, we have to, some consultancies or the government regulatory bodies, they have to innovative. That means we have to reduce the resources and we can improve the technology.
Yes.
I would agree with everything you said, but it's the difficulty to change is the problem. You can come up with these things. We could recommend as a contractor to the consultant agrees, but to get it changed at government level is a problem, and it takes a lot of time, and especially when you have deadlines on construction programs and this kind of thing. So it can't happen during a project. So it must be done by the supply chain through the ministries before projects start. It has to be people have to be looking forward. But this resistance to change is one of the big problems in every culture.
It is.
And even if you follow that, we can save a lot of cost.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting to hear because when I first got here to Bahrain, and they told me that all the aggregate had to come in from Ras Al Khaimah, and I was, it was a shock to me because everywhere I'd worked in the past, the resources were on the front door. Everything kind of just arrived, and you didn't have to worry about that. And so yeah, it's interesting.
Even last month, there were shortages in all the batch plants, the aggregate. So
this is the situation. So.
Oh, yeah, I think they're buying percentages of barges at the moment.
I've just been given that's a typical construction client. That they've just sort of, you had in mind a program, and they've just changed it by 10 minutes.
Could I share a story real quick? I probably talked too much, but I get told that a lot, so sorry. You mentioned educating people who come into your facility, and it's an interesting thing happened to me here, and I won't mention projects, names, any of these things, but we had a building here, there is a building here in Bahrain that is somewhat a smart building, an intelligent building. It has a weather station on the roof, it has a ventilated facade system, it has a blind system that's integrated into the weather system that knows sun intensity, sun angle, and it'll change all the blinds to react to that to keep the building's envelope cool. It also runs off of a chilled water system, that's centrally supplied. Everything that's ticking all the right boxes. And first day the building was occupied by the owner, they came in and they said, "Why are the blinds down?" We said, "Well, because it's reflecting the sun's heat out of your building. They're 85% reflectivity on the blinds, but don't worry, the top third reflects the natural light off the ceiling, and therefore your lights don't even have to come on because you're getting natural light from the blinds as well." They went, "Oh, I can't see out of the building. I can't see my view." Override the system. And all the blinds went up, and it's been that way ever since. So.
We'll tell you which building when the cameras
are Never forget buildings are for people. Well, I've 2-minute warning now, so Yara, would you like to make any final comment on this subject?
Not specific, but
No.
Going back to education, I just wanted to pinpoint that I think this is something that has to go into schools the very, very beginning. And interestingly, I met one of the British companies who actually have produced some sort of some analysis data that students can collect from that analyzes the amount of light that a school uses, the amount of water that's being used in a school, and it helps them just actually they work on projects using those statistics and all of these data, and it just keeps them alert of how much energy they're using in a day, and it helps them reduce the cost of basically their day-to-day costs.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's something that maybe Bahrainis could benefit from.
Absolutely. Building. I mean, your own use of this building as a laboratory, schools as a learning laboratory as well. I think that's absolutely.
Visits from students coming from school.
Great.
Telling them about the whole thing about energy conservation done in this university.
You almost had your last word, but you've got another 30 seconds if you want it to final thought.
Yeah. Just quickly, I guess for me, it's just the simple fact that we're here talking about it's a good thing. And beyond that, I think it's also, I think it's been touched on quite a bit, but we're duty bound in our industry and in our profession to make sure that we leave something that is better for the future. I drive home a lot and I go, I worked on that and I worked on that. And most of them I can say, I'm really happy with that. I can sleep well at night. I don't want to leave something behind that I won't sleep well at night and know that it's somebody else's burden. So I think that's something we have to bear in mind.
Excellent sentiments. Anthony?
We didn't really touch on leadership at all, but when we use the word leadership in the Middle East, we're talking about the leadership of the country, but leadership is everywhere. Leadership is in construction companies, with the supply chains, with the consultants, with the ministries, with all our employers that we work with. And leadership by example is absolutely paramount. And I was just talking in our break earlier about that leadership by example. And I think most people here will know the EWA building in Al Hassan. As you drive over the flyovers on the left-hand side, it's quite a new building. And at night time, it's lit up like a Christmas tree. It has uplighting on every single window in the building. And outside, there's a poster which says save electricity, turn your lights off. And that just about sums it up, really.
And Chris, the final word.
And I'd really echo that point, and I think organisations that are involved in design and education standards should be setting those points on leadership. I mean, I'll give you one last example for ourselves at the Charlton Institute of Building. We used to occupy a rather grand stately home somewhere in Ascot, and to give you an indication, on our last January in that building, we used 110,000 kilowatt hours of gas and electricity. It was a very difficult building to heat, and it would get too hot or too cold, so in the middle of January you might find yourself having the heating on and the windows open. And in the summer you could have the windows open but cooling. We moved and we took new premises and we went to new offices, and in the following January our energy consumption was 10,000 kilowatt hours. And we'd gone down from 26 tons of CO2 down to about 6. And I'm very proud of that, because I think it doesn't matter where you are in the world, that's actually a major change. And it gives an indication for us as the CIB to say that, we do really believe that we should be putting our money where our mouth is and taking the sorts of actions that are needed to make the world sustainable. And I think my board of trustees, who went through a lot of agony in deciding to move, but chose to move for the right reasons, and we end up with something better. And I have to say, the old country house has been demolished. It's going to be built, have new houses built there, very expensive apartments, but there'll be the highest sustainability code available at the moment. So we'll have done two good jobs, a good job for ourselves, but a good job for the replacement building. And you can't really get better than that, and you can't really make a more positive statement.
Chris, thank you very much. I'd like to thank CIOB, I'd like to thank the Bahrain Society of Engineers, and most of all, I'd like to thank the Applied Sciences University. Thank you, everybody, for coming today. Thank you very much to the panel for participating in the debate, and I wish you a successful trip home. Thank you.
Thank you all. We are now coming to the conclusion of the forum. May I now call upon Professor Ghassan Awad to the stage to present his conclusion speech, please.
Thank you, Ms. Ruqayya. When we talk about sustainability, it's really pleasing to see somebody, a colleague, Director of Public Relations, who could make an excellent MC in Arabic and in English. So you save us money. Thank you. But really, what a fantastic event it was. I feel sorry for the people who couldn't attend, in fact, because I've learned a lot myself. On behalf of Professor Wahib and myself, would like to thank everybody who worked very hard to achieve what we have done today. The Bahrain Society of Engineers, we're really grateful, Engineer Masood and Mr. Jafar as well, for your help. The CIOB, we have the Chief Executive and many colleagues who came from the UK. Jacqueline is here, my lioness. Jacqueline, Michael, our past president in the Middle East, Michael Salmon, thank you very much. And Don Ward, what an excellent presentation and excellent facilitator as well for an excellent debate. We started with 3 fellowships to Professor Wahib, Dr. Asim, Dr. Nabil. I'm absolutely delighted to all of you, because achieving a fellowship for the Institute is a major, major achievement. You should celebrate it tonight, tomorrow, next year, the year after, and so on, because it's a major achievement. Signing the MOU with the Bahrain Society of Engineers is a major step forward to strengthen the relationship between the CIOB and BSc. We will make sure that things are happening. It's a pleasure to be working with you. Engineer Masood, really, a real pleasure. When I met you the first time with Professor Wahib, he said to me, what do you think? I said, a very decent man, a man of integrity. And I could tell straight away that we can do some business together. No question about it. Then